Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Season 7, Episode 47, overall 377 of Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles. Give them a call at 519-824-0210, or you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. Live with CDP Sports Talk is on weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. And Live with CDP Sports Talk now is proudly to announce that we are on radio station CKRT Border City Radio in Windsor on weeknights 5 nights a week from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. as well. I hope everyone's doing well on this Wednesday, March 13th, 2024, on this beautiful day here in Southern Ontario, 18 Celsius, around 65 degrees Celsius. And I almost had my sunroof open on my vehicle today. It's so beautiful out. And I'm looking forward to my guest today. This is his first time on our show. His name is Eli Ong. He is a digital supervising producer at WGN News in Chicago, writing articles for the WGN's website and assisting with their news content getting out on social media. And he also does cover some sports in Chicago, the Bears, the White Sox, and Cubs. And I'm excited to have Eli Ong on our show today, and I'm going to bring him on right now. Good afternoon, Eli. How are you doing?
Hey Chris, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing pretty well. You know, a lot of nice weather. I've got the sunroof open up in my car here as well because it's been high mid 60s, 7 degrees the last few days in Chicago. But you know, living it, kicking it in the Windy City, man.
Who would have thought we'd have a sunroofs open in the middle of March? Usually you wait until like the beginning of May, I guess, May or middle of May to do that.
Oh yeah, right now I'd fully expect to still have on my double down winter coat, you know, trudging through some ice and snow, shivering a little bit. As I just like inferred a couple of seconds ago, Windy City, it's usually it's a lot of cold weather mayhem this time of year, but fortunately enough, I do enjoy four seasons myself, but if I could limit the amount of one season as opposed to another, it's definitely winter. I'm more of a summertime, go out to the baseball diamond type of dude and enjoying life. So heck yeah.
What's the mood in Chicago right now with the White Sox and Cubs? Right now it's a tough time for sports teams in Chicago.
I would say if you look around the city itself when it comes to its professional sports teams, the most optimism probably resides with the Chicago Cubs. You know, there was a pretty tenuous offseason that went back and forth with them and the Cody Bellinger, Scott Boras camp. And, you know, they spent all that money bringing in Craig Counsell as their new manager and, you know, shipping off David Ross. And the kind of the consensus is, or was before they re-signed Bellinger, is if you don't bring him back, if you don't bring Belly back, how good or how can you be as competitive as last year when you are missing the centerpiece of your lineup and essentially swapped out Marcus Stroman, who's now with the Yankees, for Shota Imanaga coming over from Japan. They got that deal done. They have Craig Counsell in tow, who by most accounts is one of the most well-respected managers in the game of baseball. Jed Hoyer was really high on him. Listening back to press conferences and interviews, I think that was like a key linchpin, especially like once you get to the end of the season, because at the end of last year, the Cubs kind of struggled down the stretch and lost that wild card spot. And I think they're just looking to reset themselves a little bit and get that edge. And, you know, they're still a good ball club. You know, they were about, I believe they were 83 and 79 at the end of last year. So, like, they have a group there that can win. It's just about really finding that final little puzzle piece and putting it all together.
Thoughts on David Ross, and has he found another job, another manager job after he left the Cubs?
Not that I know of. I actually ran into Rossi at in Bucktown, one of the neighborhoods in the northwest side here, at a bar called Louis Pub. And it was about, I want to say, 2 or 3 weeks after the announcement of counsel being brought on to the Cubs and him being ousted. I didn't specifically ask him about it, but like my group of friends that were out there, he was out there with his family, and like he was having a good time. He it was a karaoke bar, and he sung Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars. So I think he's to a point where he's content with what he's done in the game of baseball. You know, you'll still see him pop up and do some like media contributions here and there. And I can't speak too much to what he's up to this day and age, because I didn't really want to poke and prod in that moment. You know, he's out with his family, let him enjoy his time. I'm sure everywhere he goes, because, you know, starting catcher for the World Series champion 2016 Chicago Cubs and a manager for the team afterwards, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have to buy a beer in the city of Chicago for the rest of his life. But I think he's content with his accomplishments, and I don't think he's exactly putting the gas pedal to the floor to get back into the game. This is my third-party observation when it comes to Rossi.
You just brought up the Cubs. I can't believe it's going on 8 years since the Cubs have won a World Series. I'm a Detroit Tiger fan, and it's been 40 years. I was 12 years old the last time they won. So the Cubs World Series drought this time is only at 8 years compared to 108 years. So hopefully the Cubs can be competitive. As for the White Sox, they look like they're going to be rebuilding for a while yet.
Yeah, that is a team I'm a little bit more in touch with. I'm really a little bit more connected with their media relations department. I'm on the same Zoom lists as all the beat writers. So anytime GM Chris Getz or Paul Yanish has a Zoom media availability, or they're announcing a new signing, I'm sitting right there with the scrum virtually, as they say. And I would say, you know, the writing is on the wall with how Jerry Reinsdorf is going to run his sports teams. He's not going to spend money. He's one of those owners that, you know, fans sit there and they ring their fist and they're like, please, big free agent signing, please. And it's probably never going to happen. At the beginning of the offseason, me and one of my partners or coworkers here at WGN, his name's Andy Koval, we each do an offseason wish list, or like a plan, so to say, of like how we would like the offseason to play out. He does the Cubs, I do the White Sox. And, you know, if I were in Chris Getz's seat, I would have went after a corner outfield bat like a Teoscar Hernandez, maybe brought in a catcher that could also play defense but also hit a little bit. And while none of that really happened, like I would have chased after like a Mitch Garver from like the Rangers. I think he's a primo catcher in the game today. But like stepping back and looking at the current situation for the Sox from like an unbiased view, I I see the vision of what they're trying to do. Last year they were not a very good defensive team at all, especially up the middle of the diamond. So they go out, they go get Nicky Young and Paul DeYoung to man the second base shortstop spots. They've got Luis Robert in center field, who is going to give you above average defense. And they went out and got Max Stacy and Martin Maldonado to go behind the plate, who are both two very sound defensive catchers in terms of frame rate and fielding percentage behind home plate. So I can see the vision there. They want to improve defensively. And then when you look at their starting rotation, you know, they go out, half of their I want to say they brought in like 20 million people from the Atlanta Braves that formerly played there. They got Nicky Young. They brought over Jared Schuster, Michael Soroka. The last two are probably going to compete for spots in the starting rotation. Dylan Cease is still a White Sox until they start, you know, going downhill on the record and decide to deal them at the deadline, or maybe they play well. But like the AL Central is also a very weak division. I grew up a Tigers fan too. I remember in 2006, I was 10 years old, to age myself here. And I vividly remember Maglio Ordonez hitting that walk-off home run against the A's to send them to the World Series. I jumped so high in my bed that I put a dent in my bedroom ceiling. Uh,
I
but
know the feeling. I know the feeling.
yeah, but like it's the Sox have the pieces to be competitive. It's just a matter of whether or not they can put those pieces together. There's a lot more moving parts in questions and answers that need to be had as opposed to the Cubs. But like you look at their lineup, they have a lot of good bats. They have Luis Robert, they have Andrew Vaughn, they have Eloy Jimenez, they have Yoan Moncada, and a lot of the question marks when it comes to those guys aren't a matter of whether they can produce. It's more so can they stay healthy. You're looking at I don't know the game amounts off the top of my head when it comes to Moncada and Jimenez, but they've each missed in the range of I want to say 40 to 100 games each of the past 2 seasons, if I'm remembering numbers off the top of my head. And those are your like number 3 and 5 hitters. You need consistent long-term production out of them because if you're left without them, you got Vaughn and Roberts and then a bunch of rabbits in your lineup that don't really contribute all that much besides from out in the field playing defense.
I liked one move the White Sox did this offseason. They hired Jesse Barfield, the former Major League Baseball player's son, Josh Barfield, as the assistant GM. I interviewed Josh at the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame this year when his father, Jesse, got put into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame here. And I think Josh Barfield has a great baseball IQ in mind, and I think he's going to be a future general manager in Major League Baseball. And I really think the Sox did well with bringing him in over from the Arizona Diamondbacks.
I actually I've had the pleasure of meeting Josh myself too. I covered an ACE event for the Sox. ACE for the Sox is their amateur city elite baseball program. So you're looking at like a elite, as in the name, highly competitive travel baseball program that's run by the White Sox. And I met Barfield at their college signing day, and it was very striking how articulate and composed he was, and how detail oriented he was when addressing people of varying levels within the organization, whether it's like an assistant to the assistant coach for their ACE program to like working with Chris Getz. He was very articulate and well thought out, very kind, humble, courteous, talks to everyone. Like he's a very good ambassador for the White Sox, in my opinion. And I'm interested to see how his vision, his experience, his skills apply and help the White Sox grow as an organization.
Absolutely. And his father, Jesse, his first Major League Baseball game was at Comiskey Park against the White Sox in '81 as with the Toronto Blue Jays. And I really think Josh is going to bring a lot to the White Sox organization. And I think it's a matter of time before he's a general manager at some point as well. And I want to ask you this before we get into some questions, Eli. That ballpark in Chicago, I've been there a couple times. I like it. It's not that old. It was only opened up in 1991. And what's the latest on the Sox threatening to move out of Guaranteed Rate Field? I still like to call it Comiskey Park.
Oh, a lot of people in the city still call it Comiskey, and some still call it AT&T, which I believe was the sponsor before it became Guaranteed Rate. But I would say the latest, from my understanding in the newsroom here at WGN, is that it's kind of so the Chicago City Council has told the Bears and the White Sox to essentially come together and make their own proposal so they don't have competing ones for new stadiums in the city, because they're both looking for new stadiums at this point. And the major kicker, or what's kind of causing a stalemate or like a little knuckle bumping back and forth trying to compete with each other, is that the city has this TIF funded tax revenue that each team wants to use for a new stadium. And it's around, if I'm trying to remember from the leading reporting source on this is Crane's Business Chicago. They've done a lot of intricate investigative reporting on the Sox and the Bears stadium negotiations. But I believe the TIF tax revenue pool that they're pulling from has about $488 million. And each, from what I can tell, each team is trying to pull north of 400 million from that. So it'd be a matter of who gets their stadium proposal out first. And looking at where things sit right now, the Bears haven't released renderings or like a development partner. The Sox are a lot further ahead. Tamon Bradley, our political reporter here at the station in WGN, he got a hold of the first round of renderings to come out for the Sox proposed new stadium in this area south of the South Loop of Chicago. So think of like the downtown area of the city with like, it's not the Sears Tower anymore. It might not even be the Willis Tower, but everyone still calls it the Sears, like you talked about with Comiskey. And it's essentially south of downtown in this neighborhood, or it would be a new neighborhood that everyone calls the 78. It's a giant undeveloped lot and that's kind of what Reinsdorf is pursuing. The last thing that I believe he's done, him and a contingent of Sox executives went down to Springfield to talk to the Illinois state legislature to drum up interest, hopefully garner support. But Governor J.B. Pritzker has been publicly and outwardly, I would say, hesitant, to put it nicely, against using public dollars for private ventures, especially when it comes to mega stadiums, because there's academic research out there that suggests it's not really a good profit driver, business driver for the community when they're put in. But I would say, in terms of, if they're going to get a stadium done, they're probably going to need more private investment to come from Reinsdorf and any investment partners that he can find. And whether it's the White Sox or the Bears getting a stadium, I think we're still at the minimum probably 3 years away from, a shovel going into the ground and getting construction underway. It's a lot of politicking back and forth right now, trying to get leverage so that they get money from here, get money from there, and both the Bears and the White Sox have to kind of either come to the bargaining table and create a combined proposal where they both get a stadium, or that it's going to be this, little boxing match where they're going to try to see who can last out the other longer and before the other team submits their proposal and gets it approved.
I've been to Guarantee Rate Field a couple times. I enjoyed it, but I'm coming from the outsider perspective. As an insider, being with WGN News in Chicago and being in the city all the time, what's the biggest issue with Guaranteed Rate Field and Soldier Field for these teams?
So I would say for Guaranteed Rate, it's just the lack of amenities surrounding the park. Like when you go to Guaranteed Rate, it's essentially surrounded by parking lots. I think what Reinsdorf wants to do is create, I forget which city council or state representative coined this term, but they kind of want to create a Wrigleyville South. It's like when you go to Wrigleyville, there's this ambiance and energy that surrounds the stadium, and it's all so well interconnected that you feel just baseball euphoria to a certain extent. And when you go to Guaranteed Rate, while I think that if you're there specifically for the viewing pleasure of a baseball game, how the stadium is set up is better than Wrigley, because if you go to Wrigley and you don't know what you're doing, you might end up sitting behind a concrete pole and not being able to see anything. The viewing experience at Guaranteed Rate is a lot better. That being said, they probably want more amenities, more businesses. Their renderings and proposal that they initially released with Related Midwest, which is the property developer for the 78 in Chicago, had ideas for affordable housing, restaurants and bars being put in surrounding the stadium, retail opportunities, that kind of thing. And I think that's what they're looking for, because that hasn't really popped up around Guaranteed Rate down on the south side. For the Bears, I think they're looking at just updating their facilities. They want something more modern with more capacity, because I believe they're the smallest capacity stadium in the NFL. So that eliminates them from hosting a lot of major events when it comes to whether it's the Super Bowl. I don't think they're big enough to host the Final Four. It would be a lot better if it was domed for major A-list concert events and that kind of stuff. And that's a big revenue driver, not just for the Bears, but also for the city. So I think that's the angle that the Bears are looking at. They want to modernize, be on the cutting edge of stadiums, because if Chicago gets a football stadium for that, I'm trying to think of one in the Midwest that's been recently built. I think the most recent was probably the Vikings Stadium out in Minneapolis, because they hosted Super Bowl 50, 51? 52. I'd get there eventually, but but you look at their stadium and how it's built, and it's striking, it's beautiful, it's a draw. You can bring in big league events like that. And in terms of cities in the Midwest to host a Super Bowl, a Final Four, any other major sporting event that you come up with off the top of your head, I would argue Chicago is the most well equipped. We have an unparalleled food scene here. There's plenty of other entertainment opportunities throughout the city, whether it's music, theater, opera. There's museums galore. I would say that it's not a Miami or a Vegas, so to say, where you have the warm weather and exotic stuff to go with it. But like Chicago would be a fantastic destination for like a mainstream headline sporting event. And I just think that's kind of what they're going for when it comes to hopefully getting a stadium done in the city. But like there's also the whole Arlington Heights thing out in the suburbs too.
How far is Arlington Heights from Chicago?
So if you were to go from like the city center to Arlington Heights, so I've never driven specifically out to Arlington Heights, but I've gone to a suburb that's right next to Arlington Heights called Rosemont. They've got the Chicago Dogs, which is an independent minor league team. They've got casinos in Rosemont. They've got a major fashion outlet mall. It's a very retail oriented, business oriented area where you can go out and shop, essentially. Bill Murray's Caddyshack restaurants out there too. But like my drive from my neighborhood in Wicker Park on the northwest side to Rosemont is approximately 50 minutes with like average traffic. So Arlington Heights is probably like 55 to an hour. I would guess if you're coming from the city out to it's a northwest suburb. And they'd have to have a lot of like questions answered with like logistics and travel and parking going back and forth between the city. Like it would probably be more ideal than the current situation that sits with Soldier Field and how game day works there. But it would be a little bit of a trip if I myself were like going out to see a Bears game in Arlington Heights.
So ideally, people want to see them stay in the city. Ideally, if they can.
I would say that's been the consensus among most Bears fans. Like over and above all, Chicago is a football town. The Bears reign supreme over everything. Like just judging by engagement from the content that I create, the Bears are like right here. Let's say they're right here, and then you got the Cubs down here, and then you got the rest of like the Bulls, the Blackhawks, the Sox, slithering off in the bottom left somewhere. But like it's also because like that's the only pro football team in Chicago, and football is king in America, as we all know. And like it's nice. It's kind of like comforting from the perspective of someone that I think I would rather have the team in the city myself, for my own personal opinion. That there's a connect with that sentiment from the fan base, and also with Bears president and CEO Kevin Warren. Before he came to the Bears, he was commissioner of the Big Ten Conference, and he's worked with he's done several like major stadium developments before. I don't quote me on this, but I believe he did the Texas Rangers most recent ballpark development. I think he might have worked on the Phillies baseball stadium too, out in Philadelphia. Don't quote me on that, but I know there's at least 2 or 3 on his resume where in each of those situations he made an active effort to keep the stadium where it was located, like within a city. And he's carried over that sentiment because I think he feels that like the Chicago Bears are a part of the fabric of Chicago. Like when you think Chicago, you think like of any other Midwest city. Like Chicago and Detroit are a little bit similar in my opinion, and the fact that we're blue collar, we're gritty, we're hard nosed, we're not afraid to punch you in the mouth if we have to. But that's just what we're about. And the Bears embody that from like a perspective, just like how the Lions embody that for Detroit. So I think it's a very high priority. I think keeping it in the city is, if I were to give you like odds of city versus suburbs, I would say it's like 60-40 right now, leaning towards staying in the city. So like there's a little bit of a comfort level knowing that the leadership of the Bears is trying to keep the Bears in the city of Chicago.
I remember when Chicago was a Chicago Bulls town, winning those 6 NBA championships and those 2 3-peats with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. And were you at the event at the United Center? I think a month or 2 ago when they were adding some people to the Bulls Ring of Honor, and apparently Jordan and Pippen didn't show up for that.
Oh, no, I was not. I was in the newsroom and we had it on a TV screen and I watched it happen live. And not only are your 2 most consequential players of that era missing, but the behavior the fans had around
Jerry
I'm forgetting
Krause.
his name. Jerry Krause, thank you. And his widow, that was disgusting. Like I felt sick inside of, like I've had this like little pit in my stomach. I'm like, that's so disrespectful of his widow. At the end of the day, you can have your qualms about the man, and Chicago certainly does, because they have this vehement feeling that, we could have won 7 or 8 championships instead of 6 if Krause didn't bust up the team. Well, you still got 6 championships because
That's
of
a
this man.
lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
and like that's a lot more than if you're not the Lakers or the Celtics. Like, what do you have qualms over? But like he also had a bunch of like savvy moves to bring in different players along the way, bringing in Pippen, Horace Grant, Dennis Rodman, that contributed towards them winning several more championships during the Michael Jordan era. And I guess from a perspective of being media, I don't see how you can be so anti Jerry Krause. At the same time, I wasn't alive, or I was alive for the back half, but I was like 3, 4 years old, so I was ignorant of what was going on in Chicago. But yeah, it was the Ring of Honor. They could have handled it a little bit better, honestly, because I think they announced the Ring of Honor like celebration. If I'm not mistaken, it was only like 2, 3 months beforehand. Like it was, when you want to pull in like a Michael Jordan or like a Scottie Pippen to like attend the ceremony, they strike me as probably pretty busy individuals, and you would probably like to give them like a year's notice for their schedules. But yeah, it was the Ring of Honor was it's needed for the history of the franchise, given how historically significant they are. But it could have been done a lot better, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Hey, and before we get to some questions, the Blackhawks retired Chris Chelios' number a couple weeks ago against my Red Wings. I thought that was tremendous, and it was really nice and classy of the organization to recognize Patrick Kane's contributions to the Blackhawks in his 16-year career and winning 3 cups. And in terms of athletes, Patrick Kane will go down as one of the best in Chicago sports history, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, like when you mention the name Patrick Kane to a sports fan in Chicago, there's more or less going to be goosebumps that shoot up their arms because of what he meant to this city. He came to Chicago around the same time as the Great Recession, like in 08, 09. The city's downtrodden, they're looking for something to distract themselves, and out plops onto the ice arguably the greatest American skater to ever live. Showstopper, Heartbreak Kane, and then he wins 3 cups in Chicago. He wins an MVP trophy, and you just have all those memories with him. And then he comes back in a Wings sweater, and of course the game goes into overtime, and of course he gets the puck 1-on-1 in a breakaway and he buries it. Like that might be, if you were to ask me right now what my favorite sports story from this year is, it's probably that game right there, because there's nothing more poetic or storybook than Patrick Kane in his first game back at the United Center, coming in and burying an OT winner, and then taking the lap around the ice. You know, after the game, he's like, "Oh, my teammates were telling me to take a fourth one," and like, not a single butt in the stands moved. They all stood up. They applauded him. Like it was such a heartfelt, amazing moment. Just, I would say, for both fan bases. Even though at the end of the day, you don't want to lose as a Hawks fan, but if you lose to anyone, I guess it can be Patrick Kane and the Red Wings.
Just like Chelios came to Detroit 25 years ago. But unfortunately, the Red Wings have had a meltdown since that game, and I'm now kind of worried that they're even going to make the playoffs because it's been a long 7-year drought. So, but Patrick Kane's been a great addition, and he's had a Hall of Fame career with the Chicago Blackhawks. Hey, Eli, since I got you on for a little bit longer, just want to get into some questions now. I could probably talk to you for 3 or 4 hours about sports, but just wanted to ask you, or just ask you some questions. Can you just tell my audience? I'm based out of Ontario near Toronto. Can you just tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
So I am a born and raised Michigander, as I like to refer to myself, and I'm a Chicago transplant. So I went to high school in Jackson, Michigan, and the two notable things about Jackson, Michigan are Allegiance Health Hospital. Well, there's three: the hospital, the state penitentiary, and Michigan International Speedway. That's about all there is to it. So you get some country music concerts, you get some NASCAR races. You get a lot of people that like to work in the medical field, and then it's about ho hum. Besides that, it's a very quiet town compared to Chicago. But after graduating, I was a baseball player and a cross country runner growing up. Those are my two sports. And about when I was 16, I always played a little higher. I was decent at baseball. I could never really field, or like I wasn't great with a glove, but I could hit the ball, which is kind of like opposite of most kids growing up. I would always play up a grade level or like at a more competitive travel league. And I remember at 16, I saw a 90 for the first time at the plate. And like it whistled, like when you are standing in a batter's box and you see something that's over 90 miles an hour, 90 to 95, there's like a hiss to it, there's a pop, and it's so fast. And I sat there and saw that first, it was probably like a 93 mile an hour fastball. And I was like, baseball might not pan out. I might need to think about something else with my life. I came to the realization, I'm not Bryce Harper or anything. And I thought, I took my sophomore year, I had a creative writing class, and my teacher in my sophomore year of high school busted up in different like genres of writing. And I'd always had like journalism as an idea in the back of my head. So I took that with me to college. I never wavered on my major. I ended up applying to Michigan State in Grand Valley. Got into Grand Valley State on the west side of Michigan, majored in multimedia journalism, ended up working the sports section for my campus newspaper. I covered 13 different sports. My favorite was probably women's soccer, even though I'm a baseball guy. GV Women's Soccer is in the National Women's Soccer Hall of Fame. They won 7 national championships in the span of 13 years. I got to cover 2 of them. And both of the 2 I covered were Golden Goal national championship winning goals in double overtime. Sensational sporting events. But I did campus newspaper sports section. I was a multimedia journalist for 2 semesters at WGVU, which is the PBS TV station in Grand Rapids. I would turn 1 package a week for a partnership show that aired on Sundays with GV and the station. And then after that, I graduated COVID year, April 2020. So I was originally accepted to attend a master's program in journalism at Northwestern in Chicago, starting fall 2020, but COVID happened. And I'm like, for those of you that don't know, Northwestern is an extremely expensive school. And I wasn't, even with the scholarship dollars I was getting for the program, I'm like, I'm not going to do this program behind a computer. So I deferred for a year. And I had a non-traditional classmate at Grand Valley who was a photo stringer for Washington Post in Michigan. And I was like, hey, his name's John. Hey, John. I knew he would go out to like the Black Lives Matter protests and events of that manner. And like, I just wanted to go out and practice my own videography, photography skills. So I would shadow him, essentially, and do my own thing. And at one of these events, I met a reporter from WOOD TV8 in Grand Rapids. They ended up telling me, hey, we need assignment editors and web producers. I'm like, I need a job to pay the bills. Please help me. And I ended up working a year, assignment desk. And as they got more comfortable there, leadership let me do web stories. They ended up letting me get in front of the camera a little bit. They ended up letting me be an emergency photog in some cases to shoot for reporters. It was kind of like a Swiss Army knife role. What do you need done? I can do it. And, after a year there, I sat down with leadership. Our news director had left. And, like, I didn't really have a direction on, like, growing or climbing at WOOD TV8 in Grand Rapids, in my opinion. So I fell back on Northwestern, ended up going to Chicago for a year, learning from some very esteemed sports journalists. Missy Isaacson, she was the beat writer for the Bulls at the Tribune during the 90s. Through all those Bulls championships, she has a wealth of experience. Learned a lot of great things from her. J.A. Adande, who is 2 decades at ESPN, Washington Post, LA Times. He just won the Kurt Gowdy Award not too long ago and got inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. A phenomenal journalist, sports journalist. If I have a tenth of the success that J.A. has, I would consider myself a success myself. But went there, ended up traveling a little bit. They had these third quarter experiences called Medill Explorers, where you go out for a week to 2 and you cover major sporting events, sometimes internationally. During my cohort, there were still border restrictions, so we couldn't travel outside of the country. But we went down to Mesa, Arizona, covered Cubs spring training. Went to the Waste Management Open, did some golf coverage there. I got to meet Hideki Matsuyama and Matt Fitzpatrick. He spent 1 year at Northwestern golfing collegiately before going pro, so there's a little bit of an overlapping connection there. And overall, I just got to absorb a wealth of like knowledge and experience while getting hands-on experience myself. And then at the end of all that, I ended up finding a open position for a digital content producer role at WGN here in the city. What got me in the door, my connections at WOOD, because we're both owned by the same parent company. And then I got contact information for a couple of the executive producers here through my professors at Northwestern. Got me a letter of rec, got in the door, interviewed, got the job. And initially, I was just news, but as time has gone on, they've moved me more over to what I'm interested in, which is sports, covering the Bears, football and baseball. So Bears, Cubs, Sox. I'll even do high school and collegiate sports if I can. Yesterday, I went out to the south suburbs. There's a school on the south side in the Kenwood neighborhood, Kenwood Academy. They've got 5 D1 college baseball commits in their team, and it's an all-black team. And what's cool about this is there's never been an all-black state champion in baseball in the history of Illinois. So I'm like,
Wow, did not know
that's
that.
a story. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of, it's pretty rare to have a state champion in baseball from the city in general. Like I went back through like the IHSA's like database, and since they started tracking it in like the late 40s, there's only been 9 state champions from the city of Chicago in baseball. So they've definitely got the talent to do it. And you know, if that happens, like it's legitimately something that Disney could make a movie on if they wanted to. But so yeah, that's kind of like the background, my journey of how I've got here today. Hopefully I'm trying to like expand a little bit more and more as I go on. I would like to eventually join like the BBWAA, which is the Baseball Writers Association of America, and then I'm also the PFWA, which is the Professional Football Writers Association. And both of those organizations have, when you're a full member or become a full member, you vote on the Hall of Fame for each sport. So just kind of like little goals that I have in mind as I keep it moving here.
That's awesome. And my career is a little different than yours. I just started mine 4 years ago, and I'm doing this self-taught. And what I love about my show, which is now on radio, is the storytelling aspect. I do camera work as well, and that's one thing I admire about you, Eli. Is you do. It's not just you want to do one thing. It's good to know a little bit of everything. It doesn't mean you're going to be the best at everything, but it's good to know the other aspects of the industry as well.
Yeah, I at the root of all this, like sports journalism is highly competitive and like a lot of people bounce around and struggle to find stuff. But at the end of the day, like what I like about this is kind of like connecting to my own experience of what made me passionate about sports. Like I can remember sitting in my grandma's living room listening to Rod Allen and Mario and Pemba call Tigers games. And no matter what was going on in life, that made me happy. And those two played a very integral role in me falling in love with the game of baseball. So I hope through my work, you know, somewhere, somehow, maybe I can inspire a kid to fall in love with sports like those two did for me when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old. And, you know, that's basically what it is at the end of the day.
For me, growing up as a Tigers fan, it was Ernie Harwell, Paul Carey, George Cal, Al Kaline. And by the way, Mario and Rob were great, but nobody had any clues behind off the camera. They did not like each other for 17 years.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
unfortunately, their last game was at guaranteed rate field. But since I get you on for a few more minutes, Eli, what are your thoughts on Jason Benetti coming to Detroit? I never thought he would leave the White Sox, and to me, the Tigers have one of the best broadcasters in baseball and sports, in Jason Benetti.
I woke up that morning and I was shocked because I agree with you. I think Jason Benetti is one of the best play-by-play guys or commentary guys in baseball when it comes to the booth. Him and Steve Stone were like superb for the White Sox. I would tell you it's probably the Tigers' best offseason acquisition, in my opinion.
And
Or if we're not just talking the roster. Like, all respect to Jack Flaherty and Kenta Maeda and everyone else that came aboard, but like bringing Jason Benetti to the booth is fantastic. Gives me a reason to watch the actual broadcast, the TV broadcast, because I had MLB TV last year, and my personal opinion is Dan Dickerson is pure platinum in my opinion. I think he's one of the best radio guys in the country when it comes to baseball calls. So like I would watch, but also have the radio broadcast on because that's an option on MLB TV. But now that Benetti is on the TV end of things, I'm going to be sitting here like, who do I want to listen to? Because they're both so good at
both
their
great.
jobs.
They're both great. Eli, how much of an adjustment was it going from Jackson, Michigan to the big city and a big market like Chicago? And did anybody at WGN News the first couple of months or first few weeks there take you under their wing a little bit?
I would say I always saw myself as a city kid growing up, even though I'm from a small town. I going to those Tigers games, those Pistons games early on in my life, I always loved the energy of a city. So I imagine I would gravitate towards one at some point. I just didn't necessarily know where that would be, whether it's Detroit or Chicago or wherever else that you can end up in the United States. But I would say jumping from Jackson to Grand Rapids was a nice little stepping stone because you go from like 30,000 people in Jackson to like there's probably like a 250,000-ish people in Grand Rapids. There's a little bit more developed scene there, and then hopping to Chicago. Getting around and figuring out logistics was a little bit of a shock when I got to the city because driving anywhere in Chicago extremely difficult. Finding parking. When I went down to cover that high school baseball game yesterday, it took me an hour and a half to get 28 miles, I want to say, something like that. And anywhere else, 28 miles is probably like a half-hour drive, except in Chicago, of course. And then, so like, there's the anatomy of, all right, how do I grocery shop? It's taking a little wheel or a little basket with wheels essentially with you so you can walk it on the sidewalk back to your apartment because sometimes when you go to a Target or a Jewel Osco, they might not have like a parking lot for you to park your car and go in and shop. So like you're either huffing it with bags and a backpack or like a, lack of a better term, like a grocery stroller behind you to a certain extent. So there was that. But in terms of like the workplace itself, everyone is very friendly here. That was kind of a concern or a preconception I had going into like this job. I'm like, oh, WGN, Chicago is a media destination market. People work their entire lives to get here. Will I meet people who are jaded or like all about themselves? And the answer for me is no, for the vast majority. There's a guy that just retired at this station that everyone seems to know, meteorologist Tom Skilling. When people my age tell me or ask me about my job and they're from Chicago, I'll say I work at WGN and they'll be like, oh, where's that? I'm like, do you know Tom Skilling? And they'll be like, oh, the weatherman? Like he's bigger than the station, essentially. And I would work the same shift as him. He retired at the end of February, so first couple weeks without him. But like on camera, off camera, the best way I can describe him, he's a walking, talking bottle of sunshine. Like his energy is effusive. It's like smile inducing. Like you run into him and he's like, oh, hey guys, how you doing today? And like he's always so happy to give every single human being their own personal weather forecast and talk. And like he makes you feel like you're the most important person in the world, whether you're a janitor or you're the governor of Illinois. So like, that's kind of like something I took away from him. And another person that I like spending time around at the station, Jarrett Payton, who is Walter Payton's son. He is one
Played
of
in
the
the
sports
CFL.
anchors.
Played in the
Yeah.
CFL with the Montreal Alouettes for a couple years.
And he is as gracious as the day is long. He's super friendly everywhere he goes. It's upbeat, enthusiasm and energy and smiles. He takes the time to like get to know everyone. Like I remember one day I was sitting at my desk in the web department. And he like came by, kicked up his feet, and we sat there and just talked about like social media branding and how he approached it himself for like 45 minutes, willy nilly, middle of the shift. And like he like told him about like his social media strategies, about how he tweets or like focuses things, and like how he goes about meeting people and talking to people. And I'm like, he just did this like willy-nilly. I didn't ask him to, but like he's kind of like seeing me and my work and what I like to do, and he's like, I think he'll appreciate that. So he'll go out of your way for you too, without even asking, which is something that's emblematic of his father's character too. You know, there wouldn't be the Walter Payton Man of the Year if Walter Payton wasn't as sweet on the field as he was off of it.
My late father took me to my first NFL game, December '85 at the Pontiac Silverdome, just
Ooh,
outside of Detroit. And guess who we saw play? The Super
the
Bowl,
Bears.
the Super Bowl champion Bears and the Detroit Lions. And I got to see Walter Payton play. And I just wish I had more camera and more pictures back then. But the
Mm-hmm.
Bears killed the Lions, I think, 46-17. And I was lucky to be able to say I saw the late Walter Payton play. And that '85 Bears team was dominant, the most dominant team I've still seen in my life in that one season.
Yeah, I agree with you. We there's a member of that team, Steve, they call him Mongo, Mongo McMichael, in his battle with ALS. He finally got his Hall of Fame induction set up, and his wife, Misty, is like he wants to be at that ceremony. He might die on the way there, but he wants to like see his bust in the NFL Hall of Fame unveiled and get his golden jacket. And like a lot of people have said like that's the last thing he's been waiting around to happen. That's why he's fighting the disease. And so like I've gotten to like go back and like experience and like do research on the '85 Bears, and whether it's Walter Payton or the Fridge or Dan the Danimal Hampton or Mongo or Singletary. Like the names go on and on of the
Jim
great
McMahon.
football players. Yeah, Jim McMahon is
Amen.
another one. You and just all the hype and the gravitas of that team, the 46 base defense that just smothered people to death, and then the
Buddy
Super Bowl
Ryan.
shuffle.
Buddy
Yeah,
Ryan.
yeah,
Buddy
yeah. Could
Ryan.
talk all day about it, but like, yeah, I would say they're definitely like, uh, they're top three in the history of the NFL. That team, just based on their defense and having Walter Payton alone.
Absolutely. Do you have time for like one more question, Eli?
Yeah, of course, fire
One
away.
more question. I could, like I said, I could talk to you for
Yeah.
3-4 hours, but just wanted to get to this. I want to get you going too. But what have been some of your most memorable stories you've written so far and interviews you've done so far at WGN News in Chicago? And what's a fun fact about yourself or the city of Chicago for my audience?
Okay, so most memorable stories I've written. Um, I would say I've got a handful. The first one that pops to mind is not a sports related one. It's a power of journalism related story. So it was probably like 3 or 4 months after I started. Um, we got a news tip about a special needs child that had their specially coded iPad stolen at a park. Like they were nonverbal and they talked through the iPad. And it was a one of one iPad gifted to them by Chicago Public Schools. So like this kid could learn, operate, do his thing. Stolen at a park somewhere in Chicago. We get the tip from a family member, parent, friend, whatever. One of our reporters hops on it, does a video package for our 10 p.m. show. I write the web story with like the GoFundMe link, blast it out on social media, send a push alert, those little things that pop up on your phone. And then I come back probably like 15 minutes later. Like when I posted the story, there was like $400 in donations for the 10 grand. Send out the push alert, put out the social media post, come back 10 minutes later. One person paid 10 grand, like for the entire GoFundMe by themselves. Can I claim that I did that? No, but I like to think that through putting the message out there and spreading the word, like I can help this kid like get through his day now. Like it's power of journalism. Like you go home, cuddle up under the bed, under the covers, and feel good about what you did that day. There's that. I would go back to the Kenwood kids as my favorite sports story. Last year, Kenwood Academy won their first ever City League title in the city of Chicago, and they had three brothers on the team, and their last name is Thunderbird. Kavari, Kevin, Kavion, Thunderbird. Coolest names I've ever heard. And like I loved playing baseball growing up. And Kavari, who is a senior this year with Kenwood, their best pitcher, he is someone that, like, they lost in super sectionals, which is kind of like a regional final in Michigan, but in Illinois. And like the emotion that he like showed that day, I'm like, this kid really loves baseball, like to the level that I love baseball. And like that is kind of certified. I don't know. I think our helicopter is landing outside my car right now, so I'm sorry if you can hear that.
No. We'll wrap this up,
Yeah.
Eli, as well. Definitely. But I was gonna say, Eli, before we wrap this up quickly, deep dish pizza in Chicago. Who's got the best one?
I would tell you that Pequod's. Pequod's is probably the local Chicago favorite. You can't go wrong with Pequod's, Lou Malnati's, or Giordano's. Giordano's, I would say, is the most touristy one or most well-known one. If you were to ask a Chicago local, they'll probably tell you Pequod's or Lou Malnati's, though.
I will definitely try it. And finally, Eli, where can my audience follow you on social media and the WGN News website?
Awesome. So like, if you want to go directly to the website, you can go to the sports section on WGNTV.com, and if you click on the Bears, the Cubs, or the White Sox page, there's more than likely a couple articles from me there, and they will continue to fly for me in those sections. On social media, on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter, and Threads, my handle is at the Pen of Eli, kind of like the Book of Eli, Denzel Washington, but like a play on the words. At the Pen of Eli on X and Threads. I also have a Facebook page I'm not as active on as I used to be, where I post my journalistic content, but those are the primary areas you can find me. Eli Ong, and I'm listed as a journalist on Facebook.
Okay. Well, Eli, I want to say thank you for giving me more than 45 minutes today, but you have an open invite to come back on again on my show again. And I hope you have a good rest of your shift. And we'll send you a copy of this video and audio of our show later on this evening as well.
Awesome. Sounds good to me, Chris. Thanks for having me on. Always glad to talk shop, get some sports out there in the world. And if you ever want to bring me back on for any specific topics, just drop me a message. I'll do my best to hop on the show with you.
Continued success in your career, and we'll definitely keep in touch with you on social media, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great the rest of your evening at WGN News in Chicago. Thank you, Eli.
Anytime, Chris. Likewise. Best of luck, and may the success be plentiful.
You too. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take it easy.
You too. All right, guys, that was season 7, episode 47 of Live with CDP Sports Talk with my guest Eli Ong. He is a digital supervisor producer with WGN News in Chicago. He was just currently on his shift right now, so he had to get going. But I want to say thank you to Eli for coming on today and giving us over 50 minutes of his time as well. And again, you can follow him on Twitter/X at the Pen of Eli, and he's also on Threads. And Eli Ong is also on Facebook as well. And you can check him out on WGNnews.com as well. And before we wrap this show up, guys, being a Philadelphia Eagles fan, the Eagles recently had lost 2 of their greatest all-time Eagles to retirement in center Jason Kelce and now Fletcher Cox. And I'm going to play a little clip from the Philadelphia Eagles YouTube channel about Fletcher Cox's recently retirement from the Eagles after 12 years with the team. And I'm just going to play this again, courtesy of the Philadelphia Eagles YouTube channel.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You didn't say how, you just say get to 10. I'm messing with you.
Hey, what's up, Eagles fans? This is Fletcher Cox.
Number 91, Fletcher Cox.
We just want to remind everybody, I've seen everybody. 12 years of doing this, man.
The Philadelphia Eagles select Fletcher Cox.
Where I'm from is from Mississippi, as a city. Me coming to Philadelphia, to a bigger city, it'll be kind of different for me.
It's been a long 12 years. I knew one day this day would come for me. I just want y'all to know that. This is it for me.
We going 100 today, baby. We going 100.
Being in this organization for 10 plus years is, it's a blessing.
It's Fletcher Cox getting there for Philadelphia.
You don't want to go head-to-head with Fletcher Cox.
Hey, Mr. Lurie, I appreciate you. You changed my life. You changed my life.
One more, baby.
One more.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
Top down. Say what? Say who? Elaine, I appreciate you. Justin, I appreciate you. Nick, I appreciate you. Don, I appreciate you, man.
Philadelphia Eagles are going back to the Super Bowl.
Dump his ass. I just appreciate everybody.
America's Got Talent. Come on, man.
Just focusing on me, being a leader, and just going out and just playing the game of football and love doing it. I'll tell you my secret. Play don't care who makes it. Way to be smart, right? So space on you, this hand don't mean nothing to me. Somebody gonna make the play tomorrow. Let's not just beat them. Let's kick their ass, man. It's about us. It's about us. It's about the will you want to, man. That's all it takes. Bring it tight. Eagles fly on the road to victory.
He's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL.
Oh my God. What a play. Ladies and gentlemen, what a play. Score touchdown. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Balls loose. It's Fletcher Cox who takes it in for an Eagles touchdown.
Fly, Eagles fly.
Fletcher Cox
Fletcher Cox.
just manhandles that kid in front of him.
He can't block me one-on-one. I'm going to get us out. Yes, sir. I'm out. I want to locker room.
That clip was courtesy of the Philadelphia Eagles YouTube channel, and the Eagles have lost some key players in Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, who are both going to be in the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame one day and the Eagles Hall of Fame as well. The Eagles lost running back DeAndre Swift this week to the Chicago Bears, but they signed Saquon Barkley from the New York Giants for a 3-year contract. So I'm excited that the Eagles have Barkley, and they still have Gainwell and Boston Scott. And they also got Devontae Parker, a 1-year deal from the New England Patriots. So far in the offseason, I like how he's moved. And if these guys can come into Philly staying healthy, I think the Eagles could be back in the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl next year as well. And just got to keep Jalen Hurts healthy. And I like the fact the Eagles brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who was with the Eagles before, who signed with Detroit last year to a 3-year deal as well. So far, so good with the Eagles offseason moves. I still would like to see Howie Roseman add some more depth and help to the linebacking core and the secondary. But again, it's going to be hard to replace a Hall of Fame center in Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox, but two of the greatest all-time Eagles of all time as well. And we're looking forward to the NFL training camp starting up in July. And I really expect the Eagles to be back competing for the NFC Championship game next year as well, as along with San Francisco and some other teams. But I'm not sure about Dallas. They haven't done much in the offseason. But again, I want to say thank you to my guest today, Eli Ong from WGN News in Chicago. He's a digital supervising producer for coming on here as well. Chicago is one of my favorite cities to visit. I've been there a couple times, and I like my Goose Island beer, Giordano's deep dish pizza as well. And the Navy Pier is beautiful, as well as going up the Sears Tower. I know they don't call it that anymore. And I'm hoping to get to Wrigley Field this summer to see a Cubs game there as well, Wrigley Field as well. Guys, before we wrap this show up, guys, I'm going to just let you know the next live with CDP Sports Talk is going to be this Friday, March 15th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern with my guest, Lisa Concepcion. She's the founder of Love Quest Coaching, dating and relationship coach. So if you're looking for some advice and tips on dating in 2024 and relationships, whether you're married or you're single, please tune in to Live with CDP Sports Talk this Friday, March 15th, 12:30 p.m. Eastern with Lisa Concepcion, or known as Lisa the Love Life Coach on TikTok. And looking forward to having her on my show again at 12:30 as well. You can check out her online company. It is called lovequestcoaching.com. Lovequest coaching.com. And I'm excited to have Lisa Concepcion on my show for the first time this Friday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And before we wrap up our show, as always, guys, Live with CDP Sports Talk is a weekly sports and entertainment talk show hosted by yours truly, Chris Palme. Is on weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk, the heartbeat of Atlanta. And Live with CDP Sports Talk now is on weeknights from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern on radio station CKRT, Border City Radio in Windsor, Ontario. Thanks to their station manager and owner, Donna Tuckwell. And I'm excited to be on that station as well. Classic rock station. They play some music, country music, and they also have some other talk shows on there as well. So please check out their website. I'm going to bring it on, I think, CKRT, BorderCityRadio.com. And speaking of WQEE, our radio station's website for tonight's show at 8 o'clock. You can listen to it live streamed on WQEE-FM.radio12345.com. Shout out to Ryan O'Neill, the station owner and manager with WQEE 99.1 FM. So thank you to Ryan O'Neill and Donna Tuckwell for having enough faith on my show to put me on your radio stations for an hour every night on the air, which is one of my passions as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk is also live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter /X, Twitch, LinkedIn, and now available on Instagram as well. Just follow me there at Chris Palme on Instagram. You can also check out my website at beacons.ai/Chris D. Palme. All my social media sites and all my digital content and previous radio shows are on beacons.ai/Chris D. Palme. Live with CDP Sports Talk, again, is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership here in Guelph at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210, or email them at info@barrycullen.com and tell them that Chris Palme sent you there as well. Family owned and operated since 1969 here in Guelph, and great customer service, and they will take care of you. Shout out to Greg Smith, a service consultant, and Jim Zettel, mechanic. They always look after my needs and provide great customer service as well. Speaking of Barry Cullen Chevrolet right now, there's truck month going on at Barry Cullen Chevrolet. 0% financing for up to 60 months or up to $10,000 off a select Silverado 1500 crew cab pickup truck as well. More details at barrycullen.com. You can also follow this content creator on TikTok at Live with CDP. I post a lot of my player coaches interviews and reels from my talk shows on there, as well as my media work. And TikTok has been a great tool. And I want to say thank you again to my 2,030 followers for following me on TikTok. For a while there, I never thought I would get it to 1,000 followers, but just again, it's amazing. It's been a great experience. And if you could hit the follow notification there at Live with CDP on TikTok. And I love creating content there as well. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports Talk. If you're into webinars or podcasting such as yours truly, check out StreamYard.com, and you can get basic free plans or plans like I have, a professional plan for $49 US a month. And if you're a business that does a lot of webinars or live streaming for your business, again, check out StreamYard.com and contact the sales department for pricing for businesses as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk, the audio version is available on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, and Tuned In. Finally, you guys can email or text Live with CDP Sports Talk at cpalme19@gmail.com, or you can text the show at 519-820-7188. Comments, questions, suggestions, any feedback would be greatly appreciated there as well. And also, guys, I am now on Cameo. If you'd like a personalized video message for me, birthday wishes, happy anniversary wishes, pep talk, whatever you like, or just talk sports with me, check out cameo.com and type in Chris Palme, and I'd be happy to do a Cameo personalized video for you. And the proceeds from the video would go towards my radio show and my media work as well. And finally, guys, check out the Cambridge and District Humane Society at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. You can give them a call at 519-623-7722, or you can visit their website at cambridgehumanesociety.org. Again, that's cambridgehumanesociety.org. And I love being a volunteer there. And if you're looking for a forever family member, furry pet, check out the Cambridge and District Humane Society again. And I'm looking forward to going back there this week to walk some more dogs, especially Clifford. Check out Clifford on their website again. Clifford is 1 year old. He's about a 100-pound dog, but he's a character, and the name Clifford suits him well. So again, please check out the Cambridge District Humane Society, either paying them a visit or give them a phone call, or their website again, cambridgehumanesociety.org. They're doing a monthly raffle there right now up until March 31st. You can buy tickets on their website, cambridgehumanesociety.org, and I already have my ticket for their drawing for the end of March as well. That's about it for today, guys. Again, I want to say thank you so much to Eli Ong from WGN News in Chicago for coming on here today. And I'm going to put on his media sites. You can follow him at Twitter X at the pen. At the pen of Ali, or on Threads, it's the same one, or on Facebook as well. And the website for the TV station, WGNTV.com as well. And finally, guys, I want to say thank you again to everybody watching this live streamed and all my audio platforms, and also listening to this episode on WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and CKRT Border City Radio in Windsor. Again, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership here in Guelph. And again, my next episode, Season 7, Episode 48, Friday, March 15th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, with my guest, Lisa Concepcion. She is the founder of Love Questing Coaching. So if you're looking for some advice, some tips about dating in 2024, I think Lisa Concepcion would be the perfect guest to come on and watch and have on my show Friday and ask questions as well. So I'm excited to have her on. I hope everybody has a great evening. Again, thank you to Eli Ong from WGN News in Chicago for coming on. And we'll see you guys here Friday at 12:30 with Lisa Concepcion, the founder of Love Quest Coaching in the States as well. Have a great evening, everybody. And again, thanks for tuning in and tuning in to Live with CDP Sports Talk, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph.